talked about zero to 10 year risk, and looking at net present value of what, is your goal to be your highest net present value at the end of 10 years, at the end of 20 years? And to me, that's kind of the big difference between going a full V and going a vertical. I'm going to put less money in and risk less capital, knowing I'm probably going to get less overall tonnage in the life of the block, but I can probably be close to the first 10 years in the block. And so what I'm approaching it from a less input standpoint, being a small grower, not having the leverage maybe to go long term. 20 years.
There's one other risk that you didn't talk about with vertical systems that it seems to be a lot more prevalent. I hardly ever see steel connected V's go over.
Yeah, they typically don't. V's go over that are not connected.
We had one row of non-connected V go over.
So most of what's going over is 9 times out of 10, isn't it, under high overhead cooling and just getting too wet?
Too wet.
Yeah,
that's right. I've seen that happen.
So it's manageable.
So it's another little piece of that puzzle.
Well, certainly there's pitfalls to everything.
Oh yeah.
I think that the big thing with the V-trellis is the higher production and lower cost per bin in the long term. If you're dealing with higher dollar fruit, for example, Honeycrisp, in the past years, I think that at least for us, it makes sense to spend more money on the front end because we think that by the time we get to year 5, we're really cranking up production and we're going to be able to hold it up there and it makes sense.
So when Suppress came out, it's $60-some a gallon, and they want you to use 7.5%. And so what you have to do is but it does burn down well, and so you've got to come up with a way that you're treating as few weeds as possible. And you can't take the approach of just spray it and walk away and go back a month later. You've got to really watch it, and you've got to get them burned down, because it's a burn down chemical.
And paraquat.
Yeah, and it needs you got to really buffer it down to super low pH for it to work its best. But it's just part of a tool of overall organic weed management. It's only one of the tools. You still need either a flamer or cultivators or something. Otherwise, it's cost prohibitive. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars an acre. And it's and the margins aren't there to support it. But if you incorporate it as part of a tool and look at it as just one of the tools to handle just between the trees, then it becomes a usable product.
And that's one of the biggest things barriers to being an organic producer is weed control. All of us as farmers hate to see blocks that are overgrown, weedy, or whatever. It doesn't look good. It's expensive. It causes all kinds of adverse problems. So nobody wants to put in a block that's going to be out of control. So we certainly all worry about it. And no doubt there's some organic growers who've got it figured out and do it pretty well. I've seen some neighbors. Ty's probably one of them.
The first question is which ones are available, because, for example, one of the ones I've been really interested in is G214, but I've never been able to find even one rootstock, let alone
I'll bring you one.
100,000.
Yeah.
One.
There you go.
Good commitment there.
Yeah, what a commitment, yeah. So which ones can I have is definitely, and then you take what can I have, and then you start narrowing down, well, what are these particular ones good at? Fire blight, or what are they bad at? What are their attributes?
Yeah, where we are though in rootstocks right now is we're at the very beginning of a massive change in our industry with rootstocks. So we've been using M9 like a crescent wrench. We just kept bad soil, push them tighter. Good soil, push them farther apart. A variety that doesn't have, that doesn't size well, just put less crop on it. I mean, just all these things. Oh, fire blight, we'll just treat it more. We have this whole family now of rootstocks that were bred and selected to be better than M9. So M9 was the level. They all respond to different soils differently. They all have replant tolerance at different levels, nutrient advantages, total growth habit. They all have their own characteristics. Like for what a Galon G41 may work perfect in my scenario in one of my orchards, and for one of these two, it may be the completely wrong combination, for example. And it's going to be another 10 years before we really start to truly get our finger on which combinations are really going to work better. But we've never had that option before because we only had one rootstock that was in the vigor range we wanted, and that was M9, or a clone of M9, which when you look at what they're sensitive to, they're all identical. They're just a little bit different in vigors, but they're the same sensitivity almost to everything. And so for the first time in the history of Washington's apple industry, we have this whole family of roots within a very tight size range, which we want, with a lot of different characteristics that we're just learning. So it's a really cool time. It's just we're at the early end of it. And just like Jason said, 214. As nurserymen, we haven't been able to produce it well, and so it's something that and there's a lot more coming, by the way. And so my goal for the next 10 years is when Scott calls me and says, Ty, I need some trees, I go down and see him. We go out and pull a soil sample. In the soil sample, we look at the mineral analysis, and we also send it off for the biology analysis. And then we look at which roots are going to perform the best for him. And it's not that he can't make every one of the roots work, but as our margins creep down, there's no room for error. So anything we can do genetically to make his life easier, it's just that much better. No different than picking than a good selection of Gala. So.
And that's well said, because as good growers or experienced growers, we can make most of these rootstocks work, even in conditions that are not ideal. But at what price? It gets pretty expensive, and it takes a lot more management as and as the adverse
affect wage rate
goes up. We need to be able to cut these inputs down and use less man hours to get the same bins per acre.
Well, yeah, as Ty said in his presentation, one of the biggest risks is not filling your space.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or then the next one is you fill your space, you get a crop, and then your quality isn't what it needed to be for whatever reason. Either you chose the wrong genetics, but if you look at apples, and it's no different than any other crop, genetics control everything, and they rule. The people that pick the best corn genetics, that match the corn genetics to their they spend the less money and make the most. We try and do that with selections of apples, but it's like Honeycrisp. We shouldn't, there's areas that grow better or not, but we want to grow them everywhere. So the only thing we're going to add to that moving forward is the genetics behind the rootstocks and putting more and more emphasis there, just again to try and make our lives better and easier, and ultimately more profitable. Well, right now the best thing they can do is just go look at their neighbors' blocks and go look at the trial blocks that are out there, and then try and look at what's doing well for them. What I tell all my growers is you need to get some of all these rootstocks in, and you need some of them in all your different soil types, so you start to get a feel for what they do under your conditions. And you're even going to see management differences. I mean, you're going to see, Jason, if he changes, if Jason planted, he's got a Geneva trial, and the way he's farming it looks one way. If somebody else came in and took it over and started managing it differently, you're going to see different nuances, start to take effect.
Yeah, the other thing is, I think he said to do some of the things. The other thing is know why you're doing them. I mean, have a plan. Know why. Don't just go do it because the neighbors did it. Know why.